Yeah, so like David said, my name is Trevor LeMaster, if I don't know you. I'm a sophomore in mechanical engineering, and I'm also one of the leaders of Sports Guys. So just something I'm going to be talking about tonight is something that God has been stirring in my heart, starting last spring and then kind of all summer, and something that I still kind of struggle with today. And so growing up, I really wanted to go into prosthetics. I mean, obviously, it's a pretty big part of my life. But I wanted to make prosthetics to just better lives of people like me. But also I wanted to make attachments for my own leg, like flamethrower, skateboard, speaker, you name it. I wanted to do it. But as I kind of grew up, reality kind of nudged its way into my goal of making prosthetics. Prosthetics is very not a high job market. It doesn't pay very well, and it's just a pretty hard job to get into. I mean, there's not many one-legged kids walking around the campus. There's actually two of us. Me and Andrew, and I've been mistaken for Andrew multiple times. It's happened a lot. More than you would think, actually. But anyway, so I let society kind of tell me what I shouldn't do. My dad encouraged me to go into cybersecurity, which is the complete opposite. It's a very high job market, pays very well, and it's pretty easy to get a job. So that's what I was planning to do kind of all of last year. And then right before I had to kind of make my decision on what major I wanted to choose, God kind of threw a wrench in it. So I got recruited to join a senior design team project. They were working on a low-cost prosthetic knee and basically just needed a guinea pig, and that was me. And so with the project, we went and visited a nonprofit prosthetics clinic in Christiansburg called Hope to Walk, and there I met this clinician. His name was Phil, and while we were there, he showed us his brand new prosthetic knee design that could revolutionize low-cost prosthetics, and it just blew me away. I was just in shock. I was so exhilarated. I really felt like this is what I was supposed to do, but I was having a really hard time committing to it. And I couldn't tell if this was a Kairos moment or not. And a Kairos moment is basically just a time where God is trying to speak to you in a very big way. And so I was struggling on whether or not this was a Kairos moment for me or not. I felt God speaking to me, but I wasn't sure what to do about it. It was very hard to discern if this was truly what God wanted for me. So over the summer, I was listening to a sermon on the way home from work one day, and it was talking about God's will and God's calling in our lives and how he doesn't hide those things from us. It isn't a riddle or a maze that we have to try and figure out. He's put the answer right in front of us. It's just hard for us to see sometimes. So after discussing and discerning with friends and mentors, I knew that this was God's calling in my life. He had given me this gift for a reason, and who am I to turn away from that gift? However, this wasn't easy for me at all. My father was not too thrilled about the idea, and I myself was just nervous about what my future held. But I knew that God had given me this gift for a reason, to glorify him and leverage the skills he's given me for his kingdom. To kind of tie this into the theme at NOCF over the past few weeks, the lie that I was telling myself was that I knew better than God. I knew that cybersecurity was the better field to go into, that it was a higher assurance, higher pay, all that sort of stuff. But once I clearly saw God's will and God's calling in my life, I knew that this was what he was calling me to do. So I encourage you guys to not be afraid of what God is calling you towards. He's calling us all towards something. We just need clearer eyes to see it sometimes. So don't let society and others tell you lies that will make God's will and calling harder to see. Trust that God has you, and he has a plan ready for your life. And I would be lying if I said I was 100% confident that prosthetics is what I'm supposed to do. But ultimately, I'm giving it over to God to handle. And I still struggle with whether or not this is the right decision for me. But ultimately, I'm just giving it over to God. So kind of a verse that kind of sums all of this up for me is Romans 12:2. And it says, "Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect." And that's my snapshot.